I really, really, really hope everybody in this room is really paying attention. Because in 94 and 5 and 6, when I was spitting internet shit, everybody shook their head and nobody did shit about it. Like, to me, I'm pretty excited about it, because what's gonna happen is, shit's gonna hit the fan. Everyone's gonna be like, see, it was a scam, it was a fad. Everyone's gonna walk away and go on to the next thing. And that's when I'm gonna swoop up and really fucking do some damage. I might buy the Knicks and the Jets. That's how big I think the opportunity will be when everybody walks away in a year or two. Whenever this shit hits the fan, everyone's gonna bounce, because people's feelings and money's gonna be hurt. If you put 35K into 17 different NFTs thinking you're about to buy a fucking mansion in the hills and all that shit goes to zero, you're not gonna have appetite to come back in so quick. Especially when you only had 41,000 to start with, or worse, 16 and you're in debt. People out here being crazy. And then they're gonna blame NFTs without blaming themselves. The fuck are you buying $40,000 worth of NFTs when you got $11,000 to your name? And that's people. I'm blown away. New technologies, like real new technologies, take a while. Let me remind everybody, NFTs hit hard in 2017. Nobody here was buying CryptoKitties in 2017. Like, it takes time for new technology. So it's something people should be aware of. Everybody here should be doing homework. Right? We're in class right now, it's homework. You know, it's real homework. But there's a lot of youngsters here, but there's just enough people in here of the age that are gonna know what I'm about to say. Nobody understood how big the internet was in 95. People thought it was the information superhighway. It was like a better encyclopedia, right? That's all it was, a better encyclopedia. I remember telling my friends in school in 97, 98 that everybody was gonna online date, and they laughed. Like, no, that's for 500-pound fat dudes in their mom's basement. And now everyone's just swiping left and fucking right, sliding into DMs. The shit fucking changes. The world changes. I'm telling you, everybody's underestimating the blockchain. Everybody. It's that big, because everybody keeps thinking it's the internet. It's not the internet. The end. It's as if the internet didn't exist and here came a new shit. But the difference is the blockchain's in place with a mature internet. Now, it's gonna get interesting. When I was fucking talking Twitter and YouTube and fucking Facebook in 2005 and 6, in places like this, everyone shook their head, yeah, nobody did shit about it.
Introducing Apple Vision Pro. The era of spatial computing is here.
We are incredibly proud to introduce Quest 3, the first mainstream mixed reality headset. And next year, we're launching something that we call augments, which are basically persistent, spatially anchored digital objects that you can interact with.
But you're bullish about, not about digital currency, but about digital assets.
That have utility attached. I'm not bullish on currency, I'm just not educated enough and haven't seen the path. Right. And I think government has to accept too much and private business has to accept too much, and there's a lot more friction. Whereas with NFTs, entrepreneurs and creatives and operators and audiences can now act today, which has a lot less friction than a government accepting Bitcoin as a fiat.
How much friction is there? Like, what the form of ownership for civilians? Go back to this family in Milwaukee.
Yes.
The form of ownership is a wallet.
Yes.
Is that right?
Tremendous friction. The reason this hasn't become hundreds of millions yet is the onboarding. No different than our parents putting a credit card into a computer in 1996 and being scared that it would be stolen, if you remember those days.
Yeah. Or my mother in 2022.
Fair.
Yeah.
Or us even figuring, I mean, I was a curious kid and just didn't understand Prodigy. I didn't know how to get on the internet. And then Mark Andreessen created Netscape Navigator and typing in an address and enter. So we are still, to your point, and I love the question, it is even for me, 2 years ago when I'm like, I'm going in, it was like, this is not so easy. What's a seed phrase and being a custodial owner of your, it was a lot of friction.
Right.
Over the next decade, that will become the mundane, and that's when it will explode.
I think the analogy is really interesting that I hadn't thought about before. Is there a mosaic Netscape
there is,
Navigator
of course.
for NFT?
Of course. I believe what I talked about today on stage was this concept of Web 2.5. Everyone's talking 2 and 3. I think there's a chapter here in the next 3 to 5 years where they are the holder of the assets. So it is actually against the philosophy of Web3. The philosophy of Web3 is do not allow corporations or others to have control. The problem is everybody loves the wild, wild west, which that is, until you're the one getting shot. People are fucking getting gangstered every fucking hour for real money out there on Web3. Non-custodial, custodial, there's a ton of shit going on. So we're just so fucking early, but in 5 years, all this stuff is gonna be second nature, all happening on the back end. You're not gonna know what a fucking seed phrase is. It's all gonna evolve. So I've watched people on Twitter go crazy and be Web3 maxis and be like, this is the best, fuck the government, fuck the corporations, and then they get their NFT stolen, and immediately they're like, hey government, hey corporation, and so, you're right? And so we're gonna go through this path, but I think your intuition on that insight is right. I do think that the next decade is about education and innovators, whether on the corporate side or the entrepreneurial side, of eliminating friction for the day-to-day.
Exclusive cover art from a range of Marvel artists as well, so there's a lot of items that are only available on Veve that I think comic collectors will really love.
All right, Reese, thank you so much. So much cool stuff. You guys, check it all out. You can download the Veve app on the Android App Store, on the iOS App Store. It's awesome. Get in there, get collecting, and have fun.
Have fun. Yeah, exactly right. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
But much like in 1995 where I was a kid and really wasn't a technology kid, what I knew is that people were gonna use this damn thing because it was just gonna change everything. Yeah. That's kind of in the same...
It's interesting, my first email account was a CompuServe account.
So you were there.
I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, of course I do.
My first email...
Was that 9234?
It was like 94.
Yeah, makes sense.
My first email address was something like 7462985.
Phone number.
It wasn't even that.
Oh, just some numbers? Yeah.
At CompuServe.com.
I think mine was gnuts at AOL.com.
But AOL did that kind of onboarding that made it easier for
me and a lot of my friends who are like, I would call us purple. We're not red, we're using political standards. Yeah. We're not red or blue on this thing in Web3, we're purple. We're in the middle. Yeah. We're very bullish, but we're not like the metaverse is here tomorrow. It's all about timing, right? When we have thoughtful combos where we're being thoughtful, we always talk about what's the AOL moment. Which organization, which entrepreneur is going to come along and create an onboarding.
That makes a lot more sense.
But what will happen in that very quickly, just to give you the big but, is a lot of people will realize, wait a minute, this isn't actually Web3, this isn't blockchain, because the hypothesis is decentralization creates no power for anyone. Yeah. What we're talking about right now is Web 2.5, something that somebody is still in power of. Yeah. And what I like about it? I like a world of a mature Web 2.5 and a real Web 3, because then you're giving people options. Hey, do you want to live in Web 3 where, hey, by the way, it's all on you. You better know your shit. You better know how it works. And you have the option, hey, you're a little worried about that. You're a little tech nervous. You're not there yet. Use this Web 2.5, and that's what I think the next decade's about.
But for mass adoption, civilians are going to be indifferent whether it's Web 2.5 or Web 3.0.
They're going to be Web 2.5 because Web 3 is going to be too complicated.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they want.
But look at social media. When I was all gun ho in 05, 06, it took a while. We have now full adoption in 2022. Most people have some account: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, something, and I think that is inevitable for Web 3, but it will be a decade and a half, a decade, 2 decades. But starting a year ago to that time, every day things are getting innovated and changing, and the opportunity is extraordinary. The opportunity in Web 2 from 2005 to 2020 was extraordinary. Facebook, Instagram, Uber, Seamless, just everything we know. Spotify, name something. I'll tell you something that happened in 15 years. The same thing's about to happen. And
the accelerant there was that phone.
Correct. This is now in place though for Web 3.
Right. Well, that could be.
Back to the coffee shop, right?
Well,
to your point.
I keep coming.
The accelerator to the moon of this.
This is actually the most I think I've understood about this topic in the last 6 months. Because to me, like, the takeaway is actually thinking analogically about this and saying, what is the Netscape Navigator? What is the AOL? What is the thing that's going to move it from? I remember, like, I'm old enough to remember Prodigy.
Yeah.
I'm old enough.
I'm 46. How old are you?
I'm 10 years older than you.
First of all, you look phenomenal. Second of all, you and I would still argue that we're in that same sphere.
Yeah.
That generation, in my opinion, and this is what I have a lot of
I
frustration.
remember in '93 going on this thing called the internet, and it was like on an MS-DOS computer.
Yeah.
And like looking around and saying, "Wow, this is kind of."
It was
creative.
profound.
Who are these people out there?
It was profound.
That is
what's happening now.
Yeah,
and to that point,
you have to be extremely.
But to that point,
it's a small sliver of people.
Correct. But here's where I get really passionate. So many of my contemporaries, 45 to 55, who are thoughtful enough to have this exact combo, I argue with them and motivate them and encourage them. I'm like, you know better. You actually lived this movie already. You remember 1990 to 2000.
Exactly.
You should actually have more veracity to be curious, but a lot of people are complacent. It's a lot of work. Listen, I spent 100 hours, which is meaningful time, just watching the same 101s to get to these hypotheses. I love being a communicator and a translator. When you just said what you said, that means the world to me. You don't understand. This is so big, and what's funny, because of the greed of Bitcoin and NFTs, what it's doing is it's a smoke signal over here, and it's keeping people's attention away from the actual underlining. And so to me, I'm like, ooh, as an entrepreneur and as somebody who's got passion to like take advantage, good, bad, selfish, selfless, I'm like, ooh, I have a lot of time because this thing over here is distracting a lot of smart people, which is going to render a couple more years of opportunity to land grab. That's what's happening.
Yeah. And if you look back, looking at the history, I mean, I just remember like the early days of e-commerce. The short-term predictions were way too rosy, but the long-term predictions were not rosy enough.
Correct. Pets.com. Pets.com was 80 billion. It didn't have any revenue. March, April, every day since I've been talking about this space, I've been referencing March 2000. What exactly you just said. But Amazon was $4 a share.
Let me introduce you to Chewy. Chewy is basically Pets.com.
He knows. He follows me around.
Yeah.
I use Pets.com and Chewy every day of the week, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen, by the way, with NFT projects right now. In this carnage of 99% that were made in the last 4 years going to zero, there is absolutely 2% Andy Warhol, Jackson Pollock, Disney. It's just going to take a little time to figure out which are. Today, somebody will buy an NFT for $4,000. That was $40,000 7 months ago, and it will be $4 million in 20 years. It happened today. So that's on that little part of the world. But you know what's really amazing? You would be flabbergasted how polarizing the internet and social media 95 and 2005 conversations were.
Really?
What do you mean?
So that's not something that I remember happening.
People had very strong opinions in 1996, 7, 8, why the internet was not only a fad, but bad for the world.
Oh, yeah. Oh, come on. I remember, again.
Right, because you were in a different place, you were too young for that.
Come on. Okay, here you go. So here's where I'm going to play my seniority card
Yeah.
here. All right?
It's a valuable, I call it wisdom.
All right? I remember a time when people said, it's unbelievable when you think about it. I haven't thought about this for years. This is maybe 96, 97. Well, the internet might be a thing, but women won't use it.
Oh, that's right. That's right, brother.
The idea about like women won't use it.
Yeah, it's so absurd.
Like, this is like a guy.
Just a bunch of dudes being stupid.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. That's like 96, 97.
Or less cliche dude talk. No one's going to use it. You want to go have fun? Go Google the internet as a fad and read the articles.